Hey everyone, this is Sadia Khan, the host of Immigrantly podcast, and I have a special favor to ask. Please subscribe to our channel on Apple Podcasts. It's called Immigrantly Uninterrupted. You can subscribe for as low as $34.99 for the entire year or $3.99 a month. Sure, you'll get ad-free episodes, but this isn't really about skipping ads, guys. Independent media is getting squeezed, and anything to do with immigrant identity, you know what I'm talking about. Sponsors are hesitant. Sponsorships have slowed, especially for small mission-driven organizations like ours. So here's what we have decided. Instead of chasing brands or reshaping our voice to fit somebody else's agenda, we are choosing something different. We are choosing you. If Immigrantly has ever made you feel seen, challenged your thinking, or expanded the narrative around identity and belonging, this is how we keep it that way. Independent, unfiltered, and listener-powered. So please consider subscribing to Immigrantly Uninterrupted and help us build this on our terms. You can find the link in our show note. Hello and welcome to Immigrantly. I am your host, Sadia Khan. It feels like the world is imploding.
With each passing day in this conflict, the proverbial fog of war expands.
To my Iranian listeners, I hope your families are safe. We are thinking of you. We are rooting for the people of Iran. And let's be clear. The way I see it, this attack was unlawful. The reality is, democracy is not delivered through bombs. You cannot flatten a country into freedom. You know, I read something recently on Instagram, of all places, that stayed with me. When an egg hatches from the inside, new life begins. When it's cracked from the outside, it's being prepared for consumption. No matter how much people disagree with their governments, nobody wants to be invaded by a foreign entity. I grew up in Pakistan during the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, and I learned very early that war rarely resolves what it claims to fix. And I keep asking myself, how did we, Americans, get here again? And yet, we will keep praying and we'll keep showing up, not just for Iran, but for innocent lives everywhere. Now to today's guest. Well, his story begins in Argentina. Born to Korean parents who fled South Korea after the Korean War, searching for stability in South America. When he was 3, his father left first for Los Angeles to find work, and then his mother did something extraordinary. She crossed the Mexican border with 2 toddlers, undocumented, navigating a system that was never built to welcome them, until they landed in Koreatown, Los Angeles. He grew up between worlds, Korean at home, Latino on the clock, and shaped by Black American culture, he built his name in underground battle rap at a time when an Asian face behind a mic was treated as the punchline before the first bar even dropped. And Jonnie Park rapped through that. He created and starred in Run DMC. He appeared in Bodied, Power. Awkafina is Nora from Queens, and voiced a character in Raya and The Last Dragon. And guess what? Now he's written a memoir called Spit, A Life in Battles, slated for April launch. And through it all, Jonnie's been unflinchingly honest about what it means to grow up as an immigrant kid in America, belonging everywhere and nowhere at the same time. So let's welcome Jonnie. How are you doing?
Hey, great. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. You're based in LA, right?
Yeah, I'm in Koreatown, Los Angeles.
Wonderful. Lately I've been interviewing guests from Los Angeles. It's funny.
Oh, really? Where are you from?
I am based in New York, so
Oh, okay.
quite far. And I don't like to travel by air. So I am shit scared to get on a flight or a plane. So yeah, I haven't been to Los Angeles in almost 20 years.
So you would drive here if you had to come?
I would love to drive. I am somebody who can drive for hours and days. Do you like driving?
Yeah. I used to tour across the country and, with friends and other musicians. And we would do like 30 city tours in a minivan crammed in with like eight musicians. We would switch taking turns driving for hours. And yeah, those were good times.
I do want to take a road trip, but then I don't know why I have this perception of if I were to travel through the South, what kind of folks I would get to meet, what kind of, interactions I would have. And I do have preconceived notions of what that they would look like, especially being a Muslim woman. But I think it's more in my head than it actually would manifest that way.
There's a little bit of that, especially as an Asian rapper who was touring hip hop music across the country and going down south and running into random locals, at a restaurant. And then they're seeing 7 Asian, the other musicians were Asian too at the time. And, it's just like a group of us. We're not like a tourist from Asia, we're dripped out in like hip hop type style clothing. So it was kind of, I think, a culture shock for them,
So, what kind of interactions did you have? Any memorable stories?
I do remember one interaction where I don't think they were trying to come off racist, but it did come off that way where they were like, hey, guys, do you guys like sushi?
Oh, wow.
There's like a great sushi spot, like right down the street. And it was just like, but it was just like, and it was actually, it didn't sound like he was trying to be racist. He was trying to really like recommend a great sushi spot and just assumed like, oh, look at these 8 Asian dudes, they're going to love this sushi spot down the street.
Yeah, I mean, sure, you're giving them the benefit of the doubt, but that is racist.
Yeah. It was more funny than anything.
Yeah, you're right. Jonnie, you were born in Argentina to Korean parents, and then your dad moved to Los Angeles. First, your mom crossed border, US-Mexico border, when you were 3, I believe, right? So she had 2 toddlers.
Yes.
Was that the story that you knew from the beginning growing up, or did you come to know about it in pieces over time?
Yeah, definitely pieces. I think the book helped me kind of dig a little deeper into it. Like I didn't understand at first, like why my father came and had to send money for my mom to come that way. My dad came in through a work visa and he overstayed his visa pretty much. And he illegally stayed here longer than he was supposed to stay. So the only way for, my mom and us to come would be through this way with coyotes in Mexico, kind of smuggling us in. And I found that out a lot later as I was doing research for this book. And I also found out that we came in not through California, but in through Texas. That's something I found out later through research as well. And then in specific details of that, what that journey was like, I found out interviewing my mother through a friend who acted as a translator, because I speak Korean, but on a very surface level, and to get details, I really needed, I was like, you know what, I'm going to actually like get my friend and like try to dig deeper, which is something I've been wanting to even do with my father, with issues that we've had. It'd be really amazing to like dig deeper through a translator.
What was your mom's reaction? Was she forthcoming? Was she reserved? Did she want to share details?
Yeah, she was willing to share details, and I think she felt a little more comfortable kind of sharing those details in Korean. I know when she's spoken to me and my younger sister, knowing our level of Korean, she's speaking to us like kids. And it was really cool to just see her very comfortable, and then, just talking to this mediator, and then that person translating to each side.
Your mom came to Koreatown eventually, right? So you guys landed in Koreatown. Now, a lot of people don't know this. I didn't even know this because, again, even immigrants are siloed sometimes. But Koreatown is majority Latino.
Yes.
That's true, right?
Yeah. It's definitely like, over 50%, That's one of the reasons my mom and my dad's English level is not up to par, because like you can get by with Korean and Spanish like your whole life.
So you had Korean at home, Spanish on the street, and then hip hop was pulling you in all these different directions, right? Now, most kids just want to belong to one culture or one identity, and you were navigating multiplicity of identities. What was it like being shaped by all three?
Yeah, I always say, there's a lot of conversation with immigrants like about, either being from your homeland or being American and just kind of navigating that. But to me, I would even go even deeper than that to say I'm more Los Angeles than anything else,
I like
and a lot of people don't, and a lot of people don't talk about that part.
So let's talk about it.
There's this ecosystem of your neighborhood and your city. Obviously, like if you're in Queens or, it's certain regions of New York, it's its own world in itself, and I look at Koreatown and I look at even Los Angeles as a whole like that. The Latino experience in Los Angeles is different from the Latino experience in New York. So I had a lot of freedom because my parents are, immigrants that are working constantly. And me and my younger sister, we just had this freedom to run around the city on our own. And obviously we can get into a lot of trouble, which we did, but also you find some beauty in these like pockets. And the beauty that I found was hip hop, the Los Angeles hip hop scene.
You're right, I had a little part in Anderson's future. You hang with Anderson Cooper. By the way, I seen your wife, her body is smoking. When I fuck her, you can watch, I'll leave the door open. Keep up with the references, don't get lost. I'll fuck the wedding ring off of her, call her Silk Sonic the Hedgehog.
And that was a blessing. It was like my after school program or like my Boys and Girls Club, just being able to discover rap and getting obsessed with something.
I came for Pat Stay tonight to celebrate his life. I know two wrongs don't make a right, maybe killing one wrong can make it right.
I was very lucky to become obsessed with freestyling and battle rap and hip hop, and that's kind of what happened for me. It's funny because my sister is 2 years younger than me, and I remember we were just really bad kids, like running around the city, and it was like it was bad until it got a little more tame. I realized, yes, I was meeting up with friends and we were still like smoking weed and things like that, but like we're smoking weed and rapping, like there was some positive to like the negative stuff we were doing, so.
You really thought you was pushing forward the whole culture. I work for myself, y'all work for old vultures. It's funny how Lush went to Adam 22, but you're the one with no jumper. Yeah, y'all chauffeurs. Y'all chauffeurs driving Miss Daisies with your bosses in the back seat. I know that y'all can't sleep knowing you exploit black rappers and athletes. Yeah. But at Barstool, you're killing it, bravo. But the only real ones from Philly that I know are Gilly and Wallow. Yeah.
Always had a way to make it work and find another route.
Yeah, it was these pockets. Lamert Park, which is like a area in South Central Los Angeles, predominantly black, was the area that I discovered this open mic where I rapped. I discovered like skater kids in Echo Park, which is another region that have a lot of Latino kids. And Koreatown was kind of the hub.
Jonnie, let's talk about battle rap, because before interviewing you, I had no clue what battle rap was. And then I started doing research and I was like, oh my gosh, just thinking about it scares me. It requires a different kind of courage because you are standing in front of a crowd, sometimes hostile, and you're really versing insults and boasts. So let's first talk about what battle rap is for listeners who may not know about it, like me. And then let's talk about what is about battle rap that attracted you as a kid.
Well, first of all, there's two elements to battle rap. So battle rap is when two opponents are battling each other through lyrics, insults, rhymes that really sting. For instance, if you watched 8 Mile, that's a reference I always tell, Eminem's 8 Mile, which was a big Oscar film. And that was probably like the biggest moment that battle rap had in mainstream culture. But what attracted me to that art form is obviously the complexity of rap used against each other. Insults are one thing, but when insults are put together in rhyme, somehow there's a rhythm and it feels a little more acceptable and like it's more entertaining. It's the way like when comics go on stage and make jokes about cultures, right? It's more entertaining and we're willing to listen because they've done their research about the culture and they can make fun of the culture because they've done the research about it. When, Russell Peters and Joe Coy and Ronnie Chang, and these comedians go on stage and they talk about Malaysians or Singaporeans or Filipinos and they're doing accents, we can enjoy it because they've done the research. And this is kind of the same with rap battles. We do research. We put in a lot of work for things to rhyme and things to be witty. And sometimes, yes, it's just blatant racism too, which I've been hit with as well. But I can still respect the art form and the craft of it, even if I'm getting hit with, racial insults. We do treat it like a sport. We do shake hands afterwards and stuff. So I grew up like watching television, in the 90s, the sitcom world. And there's a lot of funny jokes and insults in that, when I was watching Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and Will Smith.
I can't. But what if it's a rejection? You've been rejected your whole life. You should be used to it by now. Come on.
He's making fun of Carlton, Family Matters with Steve Urkel. I grew up on a lot of television and a lot of Black family sitcoms where there are these kind of fast-paced jokes. So a lot of my humor does come from 90s American sitcoms. Those are two things that I loved that were combined in this art form, which was hip hop and comedy. So those are two things I love, and that's why I fell in love with rap battles.
So were there any other Asian kids at the time when you were growing up doing battle rap?
Not locally. I think, there were Asian kids probably doing their thing in different places. The only prominent other Asian battle rapper besides myself is this guy named Jin.
Check. You want to say I'm Chinese? Sonny, here's a reminder. Check your Timbs. They probably say made in China. Don't make me get on his tip and straight kill ya. His name is Sterling because all he rocks is silver. Do you stop following?
He was popular because he went on this popular TV show called 106 in Park in New York City. They had weekly rap battles, and there was this Asian guy, Jin, and he's a good friend of mine too. And for a couple of weeks, he was the champion. So I remember seeing him, and then I was like the second generation big Asian battle rapper because of YouTube and things going viral. So him and I are like pretty much the only two Asian battle rappers, like almost of all time, that have any sort of notoriety, which is crazy because there's hundreds and thousands of battle rappers too.
So leading up to battle rap, what are some of the feelings that you're experiencing? What is that moment leading up to it? Are you ever nervous?
Oh, yes.
How do you overcome that?
Honestly, no matter how many years you've done something like this, you're still nervous because once you step in that ring, you're surrounded in a circle with hundreds of people around you. It's not even just on stage. Like you're like in the middle of a circle with hundreds of people around
In
you.
a crowd.
Yeah. So no matter how much preparation you might have, it's a different thing. You can prepare for something, but once you're on a stage in a crowd of people, everything could fly out the window, like that you've prepared.
Has there been a moment when it happened? How did you improvise?
I mean, luckily I can freestyle, so I can improvise, you know. Rap battles used to be completely freestyle. There's nothing prepared. So you go on stage, they play a beat, and you're talking about what you see at that very moment. You don't even know who you were going to battle at that time. You would sign up. They would call two people's names on stage and you're seeing each other for the first time. What it evolved to eventually was like they would pair you up with another prominent battle rapper. So it's like a boxing match. So we would know that I would know who I'm battling next month and we would prepare for each other. But that still doesn't mean like you might forget things you prepared and all those things. So you still should be able to improvise and pivot if you need to. My friend called it like those old guns back in the day where there's like a knife at the tip where it's like the gun is the preparation, but if you run out of bullets, you still have the knife and the knife is like the freestyle element.
Oh, yeah, that's a great analogy. Jonnie, talking about battle rap, now you've been very vocal. You've spoken about how deeply Black American culture has influenced you as an immigrant kid growing up in Koreatown. How do you hold that? How do you talk about it, especially these days when we are all so intentional about how we celebrate parts of somebody else's culture without co-opting it? And you just said that in the 90s, it was a different vibe, right? But now, if you're talking about a culture, if you have taken something from another culture, if you show ownership of that, there is judgment around it. So how do you navigate that?
I mean, I've navigated by always paying homage to the culture itself and speaking about it, sharing the history, because I know a lot about hip hop culture growing up in it. And it was a journey for myself too. When I was younger and I started getting some notoriety in the space, I'd start playing colleges and young college kids would like raise their hand and ask me about like appropriation, the same question kind of you're asking me. And like, at that time, I was this young kid that didn't even know what the word meant because I was so in the culture. You know, I was really part of it, but it did make me think about it. Like, how am I representing myself? So I do appreciate those questions that did come. And how am I representing myself? How am I involved in the culture? Do I have appreciation or is it appropriation? So it didn't make me question a lot of those things. And I realized if I'm going to be a guest in this culture, I have to really know this history and I have to understand it. And I have to understand kind of what I'm saying in hip hop, not just rapping, but also being unapologetically myself in the craft. So what I think Black American culture has taught me, or hip hop has taught me, because I think hip hop is so unapologetically Black, it taught me how to be unapologetically Asian through the craft. A lot of my lyrics and a lot of my songs became very specific to my Asian experience.
I love that. And on the flip side, do you think this idea of protecting cultures, and as you said, it's always important to recognize the originators of a culture, a tradition, a practice, a discipline. But at the same time, do you think sometimes we go overboard with gatekeeping and it prevents cultures from being as ubiquitous as we would like them to be?
Yes, 100%. And I think, you know, we see TikToks and reels of young kids having constant discourse about this. And it's just like it's a literal battle on social media. And I think there's tons of people going overboard. I understand how it is a sensitive subject. And there's been, you know, obviously corporations who've monetized off of so many cultures. So I understand how protective we are of our stuff, of our cultures. But what I hate is that there's a lot of people who are more speaking on it and having a discourse about it without even participated in the actual culture itself. Do you know what I mean? Young kids who have paid zero dues in
Right.
anything. What makes you qualified to even have a discourse about this, you know?
I think it was a TikTok trend where young kids were talking about how white people should not go to Asian grocery stores, right? Or South Asian grocery stores. And I was like,
H Mart
yeah.
Gate.
And I was like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? Like, if they want to make something, if they have a recipe, where else would they go? And why are we gatekeeping those spaces? Because then, in some ways, we are also othering ourselves, right? Because then we are saying that these spaces are reserved for certain kind of people and only South Asian people can go to Asian stores or East Asian people can go to Asian stores, which is so unfair. And I was having this conversation with somebody and I was like, I don't get the trend. I don't know why we are making this into a huge deal. But then sometimes I'm like, maybe I'm missing something that others know and I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I saw that as well too. I mean, I didn't participate just because it just felt like an endless war online that like there's no winner or positive outcome of. And those are the kind of things I don't like to engage in. I do think like people are using these kind of posts as rage bait and engagement, but I don't think it helps anybody out. It makes no sense, and that's it's like I got triggered just hearing about that.
Jonnie, I want to pivot to your book, Spit, which is a memoir. That's courageous, writing about your journey. But when I think of memoirs, I think of trying to find meaning in your life's journey, even painful moments, retroactively, right? That's not easy. What was the process like for you?
The one big thing about the memoir that came to mind was, okay, I got to talk about my childhood and my relationship with my father. And I think a lot of Asian kids, there's like this very weird relationship with our father. They're there, but like they're very ominous and like it's like this weird dark force that's like in the household. And that was kind of how I felt with my father. There was a lot of fear in my household with my dad. I think he was working insane hours. So I'm empathetic in that way where he was an immigrant man who came over here with nothing, trying to set up shop for the rest of the family. And in the pursuit of the American dream, I think he kind of lost connection with his family and he lost a little bit of himself, fell to alcoholism. It's able to kind of see both sides of those experiences. And this is a guy who was abusive towards my mom, physically and mentally, emotionally, all of that. So it's like, how do you empathize with somebody who hurt your mom that way? Well, it's because I grew up and faced my own demons as a man, right? Not necessarily like domestic violence, but with drugs and alcoholism, and know how hard it is just to exist as a human being on planet Earth. I had to kind of figure out how I'm going to talk about these things. Like, it doesn't necessarily paint my dad in the best light, but I have to give him grace in that way. So that's why that's chapter 1. It's like I got to get that out the way before I can talk about, this coming of age experience of this Asian kid in hip hop. I feel like that's what people think this whole thing is, but I think it's very specifically like a young Asian male's journey in like Southern California kind of thing.
So what was that journey like?
I think it was very gritty. I think LA is a very gritty place. It's interesting because it's the place everyone comes to first to seek fame and opportunity, the glitz and glamour of Hollywood. And I had the same thing, except I was a resident here. I wasn't from the Midwest I also grew up in a neighborhood. I wasn't a fish out of water. Everyone wore their culture on their sleeve. So my story isn't one of like, I was made fun of as an Asian kid in, Idaho. And, it wasn't. It was like, the Asian kids in my neighborhood, like if you said a derogatory word, you'll get beat up, So it instilled something in me, where instilled the confidence in me to be a battle rapper. Like I wasn't offended easily by some words or some racist stereotypes. Like it built calluses. And I think those things was the differentiating experience. I know a lot of Asian entertainment kids who came to Los Angeles, to become YouTubers or get into Hollywood over the past, 20 years. I've been doing this, and they'll tell me things like, man, you guys are so lucky here because you guys, you're growing up with all these other Asian kids around you. And I realized I was lucky, because if I didn't have that, I would not be this confident performer, speaker of my own culture. I had a very good sense of kind of what my culture meant and the pride early on. In the late 90s, early 2000s, there was like this movement of like Asian kids where they would say AZN pride. And there was all this like artwork and aesthetics, and Asian kids were like proud to be Asian. And in that time was like very rare. I think back at seeing those kids who had like bangs and colored hair, and there was like a whole look to AZN pride, it was almost like if in the early 90s, like young Black kids were wearing Malcolm X hats and continent shaped chains and stuff like that. But it was like the Asian version of that. And I wasn't necessarily full on AZN pride, but I would be around it and I would see those. Now thinking back to those kids, I'm like, man, these kids were already had a clear sense of like who they were at that age. Like I give them a lot of props.
Jonnie, I wonder if it's location specific, because as I said, you grew up in Koreatown, right? I wonder if kids growing up in the suburbs of Los Angeles had different experience, in predominantly white neighborhoods, because at the end of the day, we are a function of, yes, the internal environment, but a lot of times the external environment and how others treat us. And sometimes we start looking at ourselves through that lens. And I can see the ease with which you talk about your identity, right? You're comfortable, you own it, you celebrate it, and you're also comfortable in owning parts of other identities that you have made your own over the years. And I don't see that ease with a lot of kids who've grown up in predominantly white neighborhoods, right? So maybe that is a function of being a city kid.
Yeah, no, it is definitely that. It is the environment. And it's not just Koreatown. It definitely is these other pockets of neighborhoods. Lamert Park, which is in South Central. It's a predominantly Black neighborhood, but also it's a very special neighborhood because it's kind of like the arts district of South Central. So it's not like what we know of South Central, which is like gangster rap and the roots of that. Jazz came out of that. Like a lot of artists came out of this specific neighborhood. So it was such a random occurrence that I happened to discover this open mic that one week. One of my friends happens to take me and I get obsessed with it. And I'm surrounded by these young Black kids who aren't just rapping normal. Like they're very abstract with their style. And they were like young Black punk rock kids, young Black anime fans.
Right.
It really opened my perception to that, because my ignorance at that age too, all I knew of Black culture was everything I saw on television or the radio. I didn't know, these like nerdy Black kids, punk rock kids, like all existed. I guess like, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was specific. That did open up a different thing in my head, because you have a Black family in Bel-Air, so it's like that was interesting to see. But seeing it firsthand in real life and seeing all the different, cultures not being a monolith was very, very, very eye-opening for myself. And I think it was important for me to see too, because I didn't grow up typically like Korean, like my Korean American peers in my neighborhood as well. I was like kind of like a nerdy, artsy kid. I was obsessed with pop culture, while my neighborhood kids were a little more gritty. Like they were smoking cigarettes at 13 in parking lots, and still. And like I said, very AZN pride. Like I was a little bit more different. I was still figuring out, like, I felt like still I didn't belong here. And that could have just been me feeling like, oh no, like, so into Hollywood and TV and film. I'm like, no, one day I'm going to be out of here. Like out of here, meaning like from Koreatown to Hollywood, which is only a few miles.
So when you say, I felt I didn't belong here, are you talking about you felt you did not belong in Koreatown? Or did you feel you didn't belong in America?
It was more of an entertainment thing. I think I felt like I was like bigger. Like I wanted to be in Hollywood. I wanted to be a star, and so it had even nothing to do with like my neighborhood and my Korean culture, American culture. No, I had aspirations to be a movie star and like a rock star, So
And you have an acting career now. You're a singer, you're a rapper, you're doing so many things. If you were to talk to your 13-year-old self, what would you tell him?
wow, man. I would definitely say like strap yourself in because it's a longer ride than you think it's going to be. Because I really thought I was going to be like a child actor at like 13.
Ha!
Like I was going to be like a huge star at 13. Like, oh, next year I'm going to be on TV. But it's a long ride. And then, and that's what I'm realizing. I just turned 40. So it's a very significant year for me to be able to put this memoir out and reflect on all those times. The memoir shares those times where I was a child actor for, a few years doing some commercials. I learned so much. And I think what the things I've learned and able to speak about, like right now on this podcast, like this is just years of having these conversations with people coming from different backgrounds or similar experiences and my own experiences. And that part is so important because if you don't have a sense of identity that's very specific to you, it's what the unique experiences of your life that sets you apart and puts you in a fun ride, a fun path.
I want to circle back to what you said about your dad because you've written your first chapter about your relationship with your father. Did you have a conversation with him prior to writing that chapter or during that process? Does he know that you've written a chapter about your relationship with him?
He doesn't, and I think it's very detailed too because it speaks on like the affair that he had, cheating on my mother, all the stuff that happened inside our house. And I think that'll be tough if he were to like actually like sit down with somebody who was like translating it for him. It'd be tough for him. But the truth is, it's like I'm not just getting out my truth. I'm also getting out my mother's truth. I'm getting out my sister's truth. But it is so interesting as I was writing this, I realized a lot of the stuff is stuff that my parents didn't know that me and my sister knew. Like we knew this. We were always there like a fly on the wall or listening from like a stairway or, a hallway or something, or had our ear to the door while my parents are fighting in the room or whatever. Like we knew all of this stuff, but we never really ever had a conversation with our parents about this. So they don't know that we know.
What is your relationship with your dad now?
I mean, it's not so great. I mean, we still talk maybe once every few months. The funny thing is my mom and my father, they split up when I was like 12, 13 years old. And
oh, they did?
Yeah, they split up around 12, 13. Never got a divorce. So technically they're still married, but they're separated. It's like a very immigrant thing, I think, never to go through the divorce.
It has changed now.
Sure. Funny thing is they only live like 2-3 miles apart, and they rarely run into each other, which is so crazy. Or they're avoiding each other. If they see each other at a grocery store, they might avoid each other. My mom, actually, I have a really good relationship with my mother. I live in like these condos and she lives like 10 floors above me. So they're like adult bunk beds or something.
Yeah, let's center this conversation a bit on your mother because she's the one who crossed a border to give you life, your work, your verses, battle rap. Does she see herself in what you've built? Like, does she understand the risk that she took and how it paid off?
I think so. I think so. I mean, just the kind of experiences that she's been having lately as I'm taking her to movie premieres and things, these are things that she probably could have never fathomed. And then she starts thinking back on those times when she remembers me like freestyling in my room at like age 12, 13 years old with my friends playing beats out of small speakers. And she's like, wow, that did lead to something. I think she talks about that. She's like, wow, like all those things you
She's a
did back
typical
then.
immigrant mom.
Yeah, like it's shocking to her, and she does connect the two. Like she connects like all the stuff I'm doing now to like those early years of whatever I was doing to in her head then.
Does she know that it's all because of the sacrifices that she made?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I remind her, and then I think even just the fact she saw that I showed interest in like sharing this story. And at this point too, it's like I've done tons of interviews, and I feel like a lot of people are very curious about that part of the story because it's such a risky journey that she took. And it is. I still can't believe it. I was 3 and my sister was 1 year old. And it's like this tiny little Korean woman carrying 2 toddlers across the Mexican border, along with other families as well. In the memoir, it speaks on some of the scary moments she had during that journey too. And that part really scares me too. Just even I'm like, oh, thank God nothing happened to her.
Yeah. But she's so much more than her journey, right? She
Yeah.
took that journey because she could. Sometimes we talk about the journeys, but we don't talk about people who undertook them and the amount of courage and vulnerability even that goes into, and fear. I'm sure she was scared, right? Sometimes we focus so much on the courage and the resilience, but we don't talk about the vulnerability and the fear and the scary, tragic parts of it, right? Jonnie, what do you hope people will take from this book?
I think there's like a generational courage in this book. I think just seeing kind of my mother's journey and then into my own, it's like I realized as I was writing it that there was a pattern, kind of like the courage she had going into this journey, and then something that was instilled in me to like step in this arena of battle rap. And I think a lot of young kids now will also know that things were a lot harder as an Asian American entertainer. And at that time, we had to really face it. Like in a literal sense, I'm like stepping in an arena and hearing the most craziest, rhymes against our culture. Even when we weren't trying to be activists, we naturally were, in these arenas. And that's the funny thing. Now there's so many young kids who like give me so many props as this Asian American figure who like stood up to other, and that was not my intention at all. I just loved hip hop. But I think it's hard to not credit a lot of young immigrant kids back in the day when they were pursuing something.
I love the framing of I loved hip hop, and you were defaulted into activism. That was not something that you were trying to do. I hope kids are not cornered into doing that, because that's a tough place to be.
Yeah. And a lot of people are cornered into it. And I think that's going back to some of the social media like discourse we're talking about. It's like all of a sudden people are just thrown into these things. Why can't somebody like cooking or be passionate about this type of music? And it's like it all kind of connects in that way. And I think that does get lost. There's more conversations about creating something than people actually creating something.
You've talked about Hollywood career. Now, there was a time when Asian Americans were told that there wasn't a lane for them, right? Did you ever believe that?
You know what? It's interesting because when I hear a lot of Asian American entertainers, they talk about how they didn't see themselves on the screen, and which is true. Like growing up, we didn't see a lot of ourselves on the screen, right? I didn't necessarily think of it as like just because I didn't see myself on the screen, I didn't think I couldn't be on the screen. Do you know what I mean? And I don't know what that
Yeah,
was in
because
my
you were
head.
12 and thinking of going to Hollywood. Sorry, I forgot that.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah, I wasn't thinking about the business of it all, or wasn't thinking like, wait, why aren't we on the screen? Like it didn't really cross my mind, to be honest. And I was like, maybe I'll just be the first one on the screen. Like
I love
that's
that.
kind of how I think there was a little bit of a cockiness and arrogance to me at that age, and that's why battle rap was a great world for me to jump into, because you need you kind of have to be the most arrogant motherfuckers out there. And I had that, and that was the great thing about that. It taught me to be the strongest version of an entertainer possible. That is truly the front line. It's like if a comedian, obviously stand-up comedy is one of the scariest things too. You go up on stage with nothing, no beat, except just you and a microphone. Imagine that, except there's a heckler in the audience and they also get a chance at you as well.
Right.
That's how I like to see it. It's like, it's stand-up comedy times 2. It's crazy.
In the end, if you were to define the United States of America in a word or a sentence, I was going to ask you to rap it, but I don't know if that's something that you're up for. Why not? How would you do that?
I would say the American dream is definitely not what we thought. We knew that for a while, but it's gotten even further lost than ever. But, deep inside the grit and the crevices and the fault, there is beauty to be found. I just don't think we're highlighting the beauty anymore, and that's the sad part. We're losing the coolest parts of America, under this administration, and things that created things like hip hop, like a lot of these things. Yeah. The best stuff is created by immigrants in this country, and we're literally tarnishing, erasing the best parts. It's crazy.
Immigrants and people who were enslaved at one point. Absolutely.
Yes. Black Americans. And, we're in a crazy time.
Exactly. We are in a crazy time. This was so good, Jonnie. So the book comes out in April.
Yes.
When it does, where can people find it?
Yeah, at your local bookstore nationwide. Also, thirdstatebooks.com, who's the publisher, and they focus on publishing, Asian American stories. And anywhere books are found, pretty much. And then I'm going to start recording the audiobook actually next week.
I love
there'll be an audiobook as well. And then you'll hear real excerpts from past rap battles in the audiobook as well. Yeah.
I love it. And maybe you can rap or battle rap around immigrant identity or America.
Yeah, I'll definitely do something I got to do something for the immigrants at this time more than ever, I think. Yeah.
Thank you, Jonnie. This was wonderful.
Thank you so much. Pleasure meeting you. Spit, A Life in Battles drops April 14th.
You know what I love about Immigrantly is every time I sit down with a guest, I learn something new. This time, I learned about battle rap. I learned about how incredible it is when a young Asian kid owns their identity and also celebrates other identities in such an endearing way. If you liked this episode, please give it a 5-star review. Share it with a friend. Put it on your social media, because that's how we grow. You can also follow me on my Instagram at It's Sadia K. ITSSAADIAK. You can follow Immigrantly at Immigrantly Pods, where it's not just Immigrantly, it's our other podcasts as well. Sportly, Lovely, Banterly, Invisible Hate, Nationly. Guys, we have a huge catalog of episodes, and then we have weekly episodes that come out every single week. This episode was written and produced by me, Sadia Khan. The editorial review is done by Shay Yu. Our sound designer and editor is Lou Raskin. Immigrantly's theme music is by Simon Hutchinson, other music by Epidemic Sound. Come back next week when I have another incredible guest for all of you. Until then, take care and be kind to others.